Sometimes, the most idyllic moments hide the darkest secrets. A perfect vacation, a pristine, undiscovered beach, a single photograph meant only for friends and family. For Emily and Jake Carter, a couple from Michigan, their dream getaway was about to become an international mystery. They had no way of knowing that one well-timed selfie wouldn't just capture a memory. It would expose a 2-year-old lie and drag a ghost from the depths of the sea. What they uncovered would prove that even in paradise, some truths refuse to stay buried. 3 years into a marriage that still felt new, Emily and Jake Carter lived a life defined by steady rhythms. He was a paramedic in Grand Rapids, navigating the high-stakes reality of emergency response. She was a second-grade teacher, shaping young minds with patience and creativity. Their lives were good, stable, but predictable. The relentless cycle of shifts in school bells had begun to feel less like a rhythm and more like a loop. This trip, 5 heavenly days on a lesser-known island off the coast of Thailand, was meant to be their pause button, a deliberate break from a life that was threatening to run on autopilot. Their bungalow, nestled among coconut palms, was a world away from crowded resorts. Their days were beautifully unstructured. Jake, a natural waterman, spent hours snorkeling along the reef, while Emily, a quiet observer, filled her journal with thoughts and her phone with photographs. "You take more pictures of boats than you do of me," Jake teased one afternoon, shaking seawater from his hair. Emily smiled without looking up from her screen. "Boats don't complain about the angle." It was on the 3rd morning that the desire for something new sparked. Emily, studying a map of the archipelago, suggested they explore farther afield. At a small independent boating hut on the edge of a local village, they met a man who introduced himself only as Win. He was a quiet, middle-aged operator with a kind smile and weathered hands. He recommended a secluded patch of sand just beyond the main reef, a place he promised would be utterly deserted. He sketched a route on a piece of paper. "You'll be alone there," he assured them. The promise of true isolation was intoxicating. Before noon, they were on his boat, a small but sturdy vessel with a distinctive turquoise trim. As the shore receded, the sea shimmered like polished glass. Wynn guided the boat with practiced ease toward an island that looked like a teardrop of green in the vast blue. With no pier available, he idled the engine 100 feet from shore. Emily and Jake hopped into the warm, waist-high water, carrying their dry bags above their heads as they waded to the beach. Turning back, they waved to Wynn, who gave a single, slow nod in return. He promised to remain nearby, just out of sight beyond a coral outcrop, and gave them a satellite phone number for emergencies. As his boat slowly disappeared, a profound sense of peace settled over them. The hideaway was all theirs. What none of them realized was how crucial his proximity and their camera would soon become. "The first moment is the most special," Emily insisted, pulling Jake close for a picture. He wrapped an arm around her, smiling into the lens. Behind them, Wynn's turquoise boat was still visible, drifting lazily as it began its turn. It hadn't moved fast enough. The vessel was captured perfectly in the Selfie's wide frame. "We looked like castaways," Jake laughed, inspecting the photo. But Emily loved it. The vibrant color of the boat, its name just visible in faded white script, Aurora's Dream, added a touch of authenticity. It made the moment feel complete. They had no idea this cheerful, innocuous snapshot was about to ignite a digital firestorm. That evening, back at their bungalow, Emily uploaded the photo with a simple caption, "Heaven on Earth." Notifications began to trickle in from friends and family, a pleasant digital hum in the background of their quiet night. But as they slept, the post escaped the gravity of their social circle. The algorithm had found it. Strangers were sharing it, not for the idyllic scenery, but for the boat.
By morning, a forensic analysis of the image's background was well underway. "That boat," one comment read, "I've seen it before." Another user replied, "Look closely at the markings on the hull. The name. It's familiar." Jake woke first to the incessant vibration of his phone on the nightstand. He unlocked it and froze. The post had over 5,000 likes and hundreds of comments. "Emily," he muttered, shaking her awake. "What the hell?" She blinked away sleep, her eyes widening at the screen. The initial thrill of going viral quickly curdled into confusion, then alarm. "People keep asking about the boat," she whispered. "They're tagging news outlets," Jake said, scrolling frantically. "Why would reporters care about our vacation photo?" Then they saw the comment that changed everything. A user had posted a link with a simple, chilling message. "That's not just any boat. That's the one they never recovered." Emily's finger trembled as she tapped the link. It led to a news article from 2 years prior. The headline read, "Mysterious Disappearance of Thai Fishing Vessel. 2 men lost at sea." The article detailed the vanishing of the Aurora's Dream, which had disappeared without a trace during a storm. No debris, no emergency signal, no bodies. The 2 fishermen aboard were declared lost, presumed dead. Emily held her phone next to the article's photos. The turquoise trim, the placement of the faded white lettering, it was an identical match. "Jake, this is impossible," she breathed. "It's the same boat."
"It has to be a coincidence," Jake said, his voice strained. "A similar paint job, the same name, right?" But his words lacked conviction. The weight of their accidental discovery settled over them, suffocating the cheerful vacation atmosphere. While Jake paced the room, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes locked on her screen. "Listen to this," she said, her voice quiet but firm. She read from an updated report. "The 2 men aboard, Samzak and Anan, left behind wives and children. Their families never received answers and still hold vigils on the anniversary of their disappearance." She looked up, her gaze intense. "Their families still live on the main island." Jake ran a hand over his face. "Em, we're tourists, we're not detectives." "If I disappeared," she countered, her voice unwavering, "and 2 years later someone posted a picture of my car, wouldn't you want them to say something? Wouldn't you want them to care?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Jake met her gaze and finally nodded. "Okay," he said softly, "you're right, let's help." Their first stop was the official boating lodge near the main pier, a place buzzing with tourists and staff. They showed the receptionist a picture of Wynne. She frowned. "Captain who? No one by that name works here." They described the turquoise boat. She shook her head. "We have no such vessel in our fleet, and certainly none called Aurora's Dream." The mystery deepened. Wynne was a ghost, his boat a phantom. Back at their hotel, Emily found a contact number for one of the families mentioned in the articles. The younger brother of Samzak, a man named Arun, was still an outspoken advocate for the search. With her heart pounding, Emily made the call. She explained the photo, the boat, the secluded beach. A long, heavy silence stretched across the line before a shaken voice replied, You saw that boat yesterday?" "Yes," Emily confirmed. "Stay where you are," Arun said, his voice thick with emotion. "We're coming." Less than an hour later, Arun and the brother of the other missing fisherman, Anan, stood in their bungalow. Their faces were a mixture of hope and agonizing suspicion. Emily and Jake shared every detail, including the hand-drawn map Wynne had given them. Together, they hired a boat. As they retraced the route from the day before, the mood was heavy with anticipation. The pale beach and swaying palms, so beautiful 24 hours earlier, now seemed to hold a sinister secret. The boat anchored, and they waded to shore, the 2 brothers scanning the tree line with desperate eyes. They pushed into the jungle. The air grew thick and humid, the silence broken only by the crunch of their footsteps. Then Emily saw it, the remnants of a cold fire pit.
Nearby, a small pile of food wrappers and empty water bottles. "Someone was here," she murmured. "Recently." They spread out. A few yards deeper, they found a makeshift shelter of tarps and palm fronds. And then a shout from Arun, "Over here!" They ran through the brush until the jungle suddenly opened into a hidden, sun-drenched cove. And there, bobbing gently in the clear water, was the boat. The turquoise trim gleamed, the faded letters spelled out Aurora's Dream.
And emerging from the shadows of the trees were two men, thin and weathered, their faces etched with shock and fear. It was Samsak and Anan. The brothers surged forward, a cry of rage and grief erupting from Arun's throat. "You," he growled, his body trembling, "you'd better start explaining." Jake and Emily quickly stepped between them, hands raised for calm. One of the fishermen, Samsak, slowly raised his hands, his expression one of profound shame. "You are right to be angry," he said, his voice raspy from disuse. "But it is not what you think. We did not abandon you. We did this for you." The story that tumbled out was one of desperation. Deep in debt to a dangerous loan shark who was also a key player in a regional human trafficking ring, they had been forced to use their boat for illicit smuggling. When they tried to get out, their families were threatened. Faking their deaths during a staged storm was their only escape, a desperate, heartbreaking gambit to sever the syndicate's hold over their loved ones. They had been living in isolation ever since, supplied by a single trusted friend, the man who called himself Win, convinced their families were finally safe. "You should have told us," Anand's brother said, his voice breaking. "We're family. We would have fought with you." "Shame kept us away," Anand whispered, unable to meet his brother's eyes. As the raw truth settled in the humid air, Emily gripped her phone. She had made a choice back at the hotel, one that had already set the final act in motion. She had called the wives, too. When their boat returned to the main pier, a crowd had gathered. A woman's cry, raw and piercing, broke the silence. The two wives, who had mourned their husbands for 2 years, ran forward, collapsing into the arms of the men they thought were gone forever. The reunion was a chaotic storm of tears, apologies, and the overwhelming collision of grief and relief. In the weeks that followed, the world's media descended. "Viral Selfie solves 2-year-old maritime mystery," the headlines blared. The story of deception and redemption captivated millions. The fishermen, granted leniency for their cooperation against the crime syndicate, began the slow, arduous process of rebuilding their lives. Forgiveness came in fragments, but for the first time in 2 years, their families were whole.
For Emily and Jake, the rest of their vacation passed in a blur. They had come to Thailand seeking a pause, a temporary escape from their predictable lives. Instead, they had found a profound and chaotic human drama. They had become an unwilling catalyst for a truth that needed to be revealed. As they stood on their balcony on their final night, the ocean quiet once more, they knew their lives back in Michigan would no longer feel too predictable. It would feel precious. They had learned that beneath the surface of the ordinary, extraordinary stories are waiting. Sometimes, all it takes is the right person at the right time with the camera to bring them into the light.